And what I think is really important to note is that this case is not against a single company. It's against the whole concept of industrial development, which renders the treaty rights invalid through, you have this treaty right, constitutionally enshrined treaty right, to be able to hunt and fish on top of the $5 a year each member gets. And you don't have a treaty right if the animals are poisoned or they're not there. So this is a critical precedent-setting case because it's not just about Shell, it's not just about Total, it's not just about Exxon, it's not just about Suncor, it's not just about Syncrude, it's about all of them. And if they win, I not being a lawyer, my understanding is that precedent, that can be extended to other industrial development, that essentially industrial development cannot contravene treaty rights. And that is an enormous tool. That's why this could stop this kind of rampant, out of control devastation. And probably not just in the oil sands, but in other jurisdictions as well. And that is why this court case costs so much money. Because of course, the provincial and the federal governments are going to throw everything at it to do their very best to make sure it doesn't win. But for Crystal's people, it's a must-win case because, their whole future, health, and culture is on the line.
My question is for Crystal. I would like to know about in Alberta, if there's registered about those cancer cases on the Beaver Lake community. If there's something like the medical register about how many people got if the cancer is so high and things like that, and is the government of Alberta taking care of this? Those registers of the cancer of the people on the resort?
It's not funny, but it is. Yeah, that's your answer. So the thing that we're struggling with right now is there's obviously reports that are there, not specifically for the Beaver Lake Cree, but the medical research by Dr. John O'Connor. He studied the folks up in Fort Chip, and then Dr. Schindler, who studied the water up there in the Fort Chip area. So the thing that's difficult with the Beaver Lake Cree and why this case is, critical not only, in the judicial system, but critical for us to find out exactly what it is that, we're suffering from and what it is that's in our water and in our animals and, in the vegetation, is that we need science to come in and build those cumulative impact reports. We need science, all of these specialists to come in, and not only the specialists, but the elders' testimony as well. So that's what we're working on right now, is building the case. So we have to pay all of these people to come in and tell us what's in the water and what's in the air and all of those things. So right now there's nothing because we haven't, we need to get the money to do that, to build the case so that we can find out those. So the short answer that I should have said was no.
The government doesn't take care of this? The government
of course not.
Is not involved?
Wow.
On the contrary,
well,
they could destroy the evidence.
That's exactly, I didn't say that. He said it. But really, the minute that they admit what's in the water, what's in the air, what's in the animals, in the ground, the minute they admit that is the minute that they admit that industry has violated our basic human rights and violated our treaty rights and violated, you know, all of these rights. So once that happens, then they have no choice but to say, oh shit, we broke the law. So of course they're not going to take care of us. No. If that makes it more clear, I hope it does. Yeah.
There and then there.
About the Beaver Lake cremation, how much are you supported by other environmental organizations like Greenpeace or stuff like that?
Actually, just a little tidbit of information is I'm actually the tar sands program coordinator for Sierra Club Canada. He's got a Sierra Club thing on. And then the Alberta Climate Energy Campaigner for Sierra Club Prairie chapter. And we have this organization, this network of folks called the Alberta Tar Sands Network. And you know, we work very, very closely with each other. So it's Sierra Club Canada, Greenpeace. Then of course we've got, you know, we work with Fort Chip, a new coalition just started, Mother Earth Action Coalition. We've got support everywhere. We all work together. You know, we can't sit here and go around talking about, you know, like Melina or Ariel or I can't go around talking about our rights and talking about solidarity if we're not engaging everybody collectively, and, you know, vice versa. So, you know, we've brought, you know, everybody was brought to the table, environmentalists, you know, climate change folks. You know, the only piece missing to the perfect solidarity puzzle was First Nations peoples. And that's happened, you know, in the last few years. So here we are, you know, all collectively working together. So, you know, we all work together and we're very close. We all, you know, work very closely together. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation. It was both inspiring and frightening. You know, I've heard it before, but I thank you. I thank you all for it. And obviously the human rights violations that are going on there have to be addressed, and I hope everyone across the country supports these efforts. I guess my question is putting it in a different context, but related one. In terms of human rights violation, we talked about the 1% and 99%, and that the real interest of the developers here, Exxon et al., is in profit. It's profit instead of people's needs and maintaining a viable and vibrant ecological system of which we are a part. And that's, I think you described that well. It makes me think of Kevin Anderson. He's somebody who's with the Royal Society in England, climate change. And more climate scientists, you know, they do the important work around climate science, but they're also saying we're in a situation where we have to seriously look at our economic and political systems and change it. Because that's what's behind it in terms of collusion, say, between the oil companies and government, is that profit comes before people's needs and people's lives. So in that sense, you know, the whole notion of moving away from this economic system based on profit and not based on respect for people and for Mother Nature. How do you see this question? To everyone.
You just do the last little bit of your question again, sorry.
Well, the question of moving away from that exploitative economic and political system that is sort of underlies this, a relationship to nature, right? You know, we used to see where capitalism and this relationship to nature is leading us down this unsustainable path. So how do we envisage moving away from that kind of economic and political system? And how do you see this kind of work imbricated in that?
Jeez, I'm just a photographer.
Well, you're a citizen.
No,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Yikes. I don't have the answer. I wish I did. But one thing I've noticed is that I don't think the workers in the oil industry are bad people. You know, they're good working folks. They're trying to produce a product. I'm talking about the workers. You know, they're trying to produce a product the best they can that we're all creating demand for. And we're all, you know, we're all kind of trapped in this infrastructure, which is not in our best interest. You know, the longer version of my presentation has an aerial photograph of, you know, highways all over Los Angeles, and I talk about how our cities have been constructed as these kind of, you know, temples to fossil fuel.
But we don't control that either. You know, we can fight against it.
No, we don't. But, you know, we have to really look at kind of, you know, we have to go back to square one and look at systemically how we got here and what we do to start chipping away at that entire infrastructure. And, you know, we can't kind of say, well, work here, work there, or our back's against the wall. We kind of have to work everywhere. We, you know, we need to work politically. We need to work at the community level. That might be getting a bike rack installed, you know, at your office or shower so people can ride their bikes. I know it seems like a small thing, but a bunch of small things make a big thing. And if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. We need to look at all these things. You know, there's no easy answer. You know, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't entrench ourselves deeper and deeper into this system. You know, if someone's got a better answer, man, I'd love to hear it. Oh, wow, how many, we got like 5 different answers. Solutions. This is what we want. Does anyone else on the panel want to?
No, I do want to hear what you have to say. I'm just, you know, for me, I guess the only thing that I would say is that, and I don't have a solution, is that, you know, here we are in our own country, economic hostages, pacifying ourselves with money, and that there's nothing okay with that.
Just briefly, it's to keep in mind climate justice. It's to make sure that people that are the most affected have a voice or have a word to say, and it can be heard, because big decisions like that are being made without like having at the table with people that would be directly affected. So it's trying to make this shift so that everybody concerned can be heard, and then maybe we can make, you know, big changes by having everybody heard. You had a comment?
Yeah, I don't. Sorry, I'm sorry for my English. I'm not used to talking. Je vais parler en français, puis il y aura la traduction, s'il vous plaît. Moi, en fait, pour répondre à monsieur, essayer de répondre à monsieur, en fait, c'est pas une réponse, mais c'est une piste de solution. Je crois que les deux problèmes sont interreliés. Je crois qu'on ne peut pas espérer, en tant que société axée sur le capitalisme et sur le profit, et sur une économie de marché, on ne peut pas espérer se sortir de cette impasse-là si on ne revoit pas nos politiques financières à la base. Parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier que les énergies renouvelables, comme l'énergie solaire, l'énergie géothermique, l'énergie éolienne, c'est des énergies qui ont déjà été inventées et qui existent présentement, mais vers lesquelles on ne veut pas aller trop vite parce que les gouvernements et les compagnies de pétrolières savent très bien qu'à partir du moment où on installe les infrastructures, il n'y aura plus une scène à faire avec les énergies fossiles, le charbon, le pétrole et toutes ces énergies-là. Donc, tout ce que je veux dire, c'est que dans ce combat-là, il ne faut jamais oublier que les deux aspects, l'aspect économique et l'aspect environnemental, sont interreliés. Il ne faut jamais perdre ça de vue si on veut régler ce problème-là un jour. C'est juste ça que j'avais à dire.
Tout à fait d'accord.
So he was pretty much just saying the connection between the environment and the economy and how the financial system is backing that carbon lock-in that, of course, is happening with tar sands. So saying that we have to remember that these two things are interconnected, pretty much. Yes.
I just,
did you have a question before as well? Or just maybe take
Thank you for your talk. I'd like to just clarify one aspect to make sure I understood. You said something about not wanting to say that you're not saying to shut down the tar sands. Is there a reason why you would not want to say that?
My personal opinion, and that opinion of my leadership and my nation as a whole, and our people as a whole, are all different. So that question is very unfair to ask me, which is why I just won't answer it, because like I said, I don't represent my nation, I don't represent my leadership, I represent my children and me as a citizen member of my community. And so I can't answer that, you know, in a private conversation, me and you, my personal opinion, I would answer that, but I can't answer that, you know, and have that out there, you know, and have it misconstrued, and maybe me, you know, it comes out as if I'm speaking for my nation or my leadership when I don't. Sorry.
And I just wanted to say something to that. I just talking about the financial, economic, yada, yada, yada. Statistics Canada's figures from 2012, the most recent year we have them, indicate that the gross domestic product contribution of the tar sands for direct and indirect benefits is 2%. 2%. 90% of that is realized within Alberta, 0.2% outside of Alberta. The other thing I wanted to say is, you know, essentially what Crystal is asking for is the same thing that Peter Lougheed asked for after he flew over the tar sands, and that was a moratorium on development because that was out of control. And that was almost 10 years ago. And the same thing that the Conservative MP for Fort McMurray, who just resigned, just asked for last week. It said, this is out of control, we need to stop it, stop the expansion, reassess, you know. So this is not a radical ask. It's a first step.
So we have time for about one more question, maybe two.
I'd like to say that Crystal hit the nail on the head when to his question a while ago. Is that your people have been up there for more than 500 years. You've lived there, and tar sands has been there how long and has destroyed so much. So the answers are with your elders and your people to his question. A good part of it is in the indigenous people have a lot of the answers of where to go for the future. You've lasted this long, right? Is that? Yeah, geez, I'm losing something. I wanted to answer something else you just brought up. I'll think about it. Thank you very much.
So maybe just time for one more question. There's a few. Do you guys have? Okay. Well, this gentleman had actually raised his hand first, I believe. Is that correct?
Backwards. A little bit of a comment. You notice that I was with the Sierra Club. I've been involved with the Sierra Club for quite a few years, and I spent a lot of time going around to various town councils in and around the Montreal area. And too often I hear mayors or councillors pointing a finger to Alberta as if that was the source of the entire planet's problems. And we don't look at our own problems here. But every time somebody starts a car, we're contributing to the requirement that the tar sands get developed. Well, that's not 100% true. Every time you use fuel, gasoline, at some point you're contributing. There's 100,000 cars on the Laurentian Auto Route with one driver in them every day, and that's ridiculous. So I think we have to look in our own backyard before we point to somebody else's. I'm hoping to get out to Fort McMurray next summer, and I'm wondering, when you were taking your pictures, if you had any opposition or any interference in trying to take pictures. And for Crystal, we saw what Neil Young went up against this past week or so. He's being trashed right, left, and center, and I'm wondering if you felt anything like that.
Well, I'll start saying, in the air, no issue. On the ground, yes. But they try to push you around, but they can't do anything if you're on ground. Well, it's all on ground land. But if you're on the other side of the fence, as I said to Paladin Security, that line, the rules of Syncrude, this line, the laws of Canada, you got an issue, call the police. And then I registered a complaint, and they left me alone.
What was the question about Neil?
Well, Neil Young came out and
Yeah.
with his tour and in the news and whatnot, or
Yeah, he's being trashed.
He's
for
being
listening
trashed
to
a bit. So I'm wondering if you felt any pressure from conservative-led groups or news outlets or anything like that. If they picked up on the fact that you're touring and they're trying to make you look silly or whatever.
No, actually, I'm lucky. I'm kind of under the radar still.
But wait.
So I think I don't care. I was here first. My people were here first. So let's say what them want to say. Oh, longer than 500 years. Yeah, 5,000 years. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's give our panelists a warm thanks.
I just want to real quick.
Like
I just want to acknowledge. I didn't realize, until after when I went out to the washroom. I just want to acknowledge, our people back home. We really admire the fierce, really, when I talked about Mother Earth soldiers and warriors, and those ones that stand on the front lines, they walk their talk, and then that's the Mohawk Nation. I just want to acknowledge the elders that are back there. Like I said, I don't claim to know anything, but when I go somewhere and being raised by my grandmother, I was lucky that way. She brought me up, and so I just want to acknowledge, that you're here and you took the time. And I'm sorry as a young person that I stood up here and spoke, that much without acknowledging you. So I just want to, acknowledge that you're here. The strength that your people have. My Uncle Ron back home, he talks about that, the strength that the women have and that the men have. So.
Okay, so thanks so much again. So please join us outside. We're going to take a picture of all of this wonderful group, and then we will draw the raffle, and then we will accord the beautiful prize. Donc, s'il vous plaît, veuillez nous joindre ici, puis on va prendre une photo de toute la gang, et ensuite on va tirer le prize. Merci beaucoup.
I was just going to say also, if anyone's interested in purchasing a print, I've got a number of prints in various sizes and price ranges to accommodate all needs. Okay, so if you want to just come up and say cheers.
Alors, ceci conclut la conférence sur les sables bitumineux exposés sur les ondes de 99media.org. Merci à tous d'avoir été des nôtres cet après-midi. N'oubliez pas de suivre mon compte Facebook et ou Twitter, ainsi que le compte Facebook et ou Twitter du groupe 99media.org. Je vous souhaite un excellent restant de soirée et revenez-nous à la prochaine web diffusion. So, thank you everybody for having followed today's conference, Tar Sands Exposed, live on 99media.org. I hereby invite you all to follow my Facebook and or Twitter account, including the Facebook and or Twitter account of 99media.org, to find out the moment of the next live stream. Thank you once again, and have a great remaining of weekend.